Hey guys, welcome to TST Garage. I'm Bart, and in this episode I will be installing the TST Industries WORX Airbox on this Kawasaki Ninja 500 behind me. This intake system is designed to work on the 400 and 500 models alike. It does come in two separate variants, one of them being dedicated to the ABS bike and the other one for the non-ABS versions. The installation is fairly similar. There are some nuances that are a little bit different, but we already captured the non-ABS installation flow in a previous video that we've launched. So in this video, we'll be focusing mainly on the ABS version. This airbox delivers a performance boost by funneling more cold air directly into the intake tract, enhancing power and torque for better acceleration, higher top speed, and smoother and more responsive riding. Plus, it reduces weight by 2.5 pounds, which is a big advantage for racers focused on agility and speed. We recently went back to the drawing board and decided to update our design. We wanted to knock down the price a little bit and also take advantage of some new manufacturing capabilities that we've unlocked. So what you see in front of me is a slightly updated V2 design. We did go to rubber stacks on this design. We did revise our filter element. It now features a different carrier, same foam. The rear section is still a polymer and the forward section is still carbon fiber. However, we decided to go with slightly different mounting material, and also the way we affix our logo onto the airboxes is a little bit simplified, so it does save some cost. Same performance characteristics, same two variants, no big deal there. This was basically a move to get you guys a better price point at the same performance level. So this being an installation video, I'm not gonna go into too much more detail about this product. If you want a full breakdown, we do have a feature video that is dedicated to going over all of the features and details that you may wanna know about before making a commitment to purchase this and install it on your bike. Look for that on our YouTube channel or tstindustries.com. Now with all that yapping out of the way, let's grab some tools and tear into this thing and install our new airbox on the bike. All right, before we begin, I wanna mention this. This is our factory road bike. Most of you who will be purchasing this system will be doing so for a race bike. None of these street components are gonna be on it. We're gonna forego the actual step-by-step details of how to take off these parts. You will witness what I take off, and that'll just be duplicated in your race or track going setup by just removing fairings and the tank. Once we take the tank off, we're in the right area, and that's when I'll cut in with commentary and details. We'll need to pull out in this direction. Now, I have to be very gentle because we do have fuel line and also fuel sender connection on the bottom here. As soon as it's loose, I could see if maybe I could dislodge it. Oh yeah. Fuel line has to come off, and the electrical connection needs to come off. If you do the fuel line first, it gives you a little bit more wiggle room. I took this fuel line off of the area here. I'm gonna need to replace this on here because my clip slipped off. Okay, and this connection came off of here. Now the ECU on this bike is actually quite a bit of a pain in the butt to get to. So if you are doing this modification and you're taking this bike apart for the installation and you want to get your ECU tuned, I would suggest that this is a perfect time to do that. You will need to get all of these relays and connectors off this tray, remove these two 8mm head screws, loosen some of this, remove the tank bracket, and this will come out and expose the area where you have a relay box, which is gray, and the ECU, which is black. You will need that ECU unplugged and out of the bike to send to a tuner like TST Industries or other guys out there, and then get it back in, replace it in the reverse order of removal, and then move on to other things like we are going to now. This is your OEM airbox. We will need to extract this from the bike. Be careful around the fuel line. You don't want to kink it in any way. That could result in a lean condition if you were to kink it. So be careful. This is a connector that needs to come off. This here is your air temperature sensor, very important. We will be removing this after we take this off the bike and replacing it on our new intake. There's a 10mm head screw here. We'll need to remove that. Okay, at this point, the airbox is held in by only the clamps that are holding the OEM air intake funnels onto the plenum. The clamps require a 3mm Allen. Loosen them up. You do not have to remove the screw from the clamp, you just loosen it up. Each side has one. There's an additional hose here that needs to be slipped off. Like I said, this was a road going bike here at TST Industries. Now that we're replacing these parts, we will not be placing it back in service on the road, but this hose here does need to come off. This leads to an air injection system up in the bike. We will be replacing the air injection system with a block off kit that has a plate and a couple other things that take care of that. So we will not be reinstalling this on our race airbox. There is no place to install it onto. Okay, verifying that everything is loose and I'm able to just pick up on this and dislodge it. Two extra hoses here. We have this hose that goes from the airbox to our intake system sensors, and then we have one hose here that goes to the crankcase. Loosen up on these clamps some more. Here you see our TST Industries previous generation stacks that we offered for just a velocity stack replacement. Typically these are black rubber, but we already had our system on here. Regardless of that, the clamps are still factory. We just reused the factory clamps. So we will scavenge these for use on the new system. All right, we'll put this guy to the side. So the stock configuration here does not accommodate our airbox. We will need to remove this bracket. So we will need to remount the ignition switch connector somewhere else. Let's take that off for now. It's also what looks like a wheel speed sensor connector here. $12mm socket, 2 screws. Now the throttle cable is routed through here, so we'll need to figure out how to get that out. The next step will involve getting the airbox in place here. So we have ample room now. We will need to do some cable management towards the end here. I'm gonna undo this wiring and remove it, place it somewhere else. I think this is a pretty good opportunity here to remove the wiring from the frame. Make it loose enough so that we can get it off to the side later and cinch it off. We don't want it to be in the way of our intake stream. There's a cable management clip that is not necessary anymore. All right. Push that up through the frame here. Need to make sure that our Throttle cables are not pressed on, unobstructed, and all of that. This is a pretty good area for these connectors here. I'll grab cable tie. Keep it loose for now. Okay, I have all those components we just took off from this area here, nicely hidden within the frame, tied off, lock to lock, still unobstructed. Make sure that anytime you tie anything off to the frame, you consider what it might be interfering with. Very good here. Throttle's still free to go, nice and smooth. Now, we'll need to replace that air temperature sensor that this plugs into on here. I'm going to take a 3mm Allen, remove these fasteners here. They go into rubber well nuts. And this, by the way, will be how you get into the airbox to remove the filter so you could service it. If you need the chemicals necessary for servicing the filter, like the filter wash and a biodegradable filter oil, we do have those. They are MWR brand. They can be purchased separately or with the airbox at the time of the purchase of the airbox. Check out tstindustries.com. Have all that stuff conveniently put together in the same area of our website. All right, now that the screws are out, you just need to press on the tabs and split the airbox like so. You can see filter comes out. When you go to put it back together, it's the more rectangular section towards the bottom, rounded towards the top. The notches line up with where the tabs go, top and bottom. And obviously you want to have the full filter face towards the front, towards the intake side, and this towards the engine side. Using a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver, we'll remove the screw holding on the air temperature sensor. The sensor comes off very easily after that. Grab the rear end of the airbox. There's a larger hole with a counter bore for the little rubber O-ring. Make sure that rubber O-ring is still on there. And insert that in that larger hole and then line up our mounting hole here and use the same screw. Once you get that in there and there's no more motion, that's it. Now we'll need to transfer our clamps onto here. Now we do have these nipples on the flanges that correspond to the holes here. This just makes the placement of the clamps a little bit easier. We don't necessarily send these to you already clocked in the right position, so once you get these on, you'll just need to make sure that once this is down and on the throttle bodies, the screw is actually pointing out and accessible. And here it is. I actually don't like that location too much, so I'm going to change it. It almost interferes with this feature of the fuel rail, so I will make it hang out on the forward part. The way I'll do that is by reclocking my intake funnel, my stack. Now this is looking a little bit better. Oh, no interference. Let's go for the next one and pick the same method. All right, I have these guys clocked the way I want them now. And all right, here we go. Lines up nicely, pops right on. This hose here that goes from the airbox to the center of the throttle bodies, no issue. Easy to put it back on, easy to get the clamp back on, no big deal. Now the other hose that goes to the crankcase, that's a little bit more of an issue. It will be far easier to replace it with one of the side fairings off, but I will attempt to get my hand in there and get it popped on. All right, hoses are on. The stacks are on the throttle bodies. I'm going to use that 3mm Allen to get these tightened down. Now the idea here is to clamp down enough to exert friction between the rubber of the stacks and the throttle bodies, and then that's it. Don't want to overstress the rubber. Give it a tug test, good to go. Repeat on this side. Before I finish, I like to feel the transition between the rubber stack and the throttle body, making sure that there is no step. If there is a step, that means that I somehow screwed up my positioning, and then I'll need to loosen that up, pressurize it down again, making sure that there's no step, and then retighten it. Now we'll superimpose the filter onto the tabs like I instructed before. Filter element forward. All right, at this point, we're going to be installing the hanger brackets onto the front of the airbox. We have a grommet here. This is our hanging hardware. It's made to be a springy suspension type piece. So it's also slotted for up and down, left to right adjustability. It does come with its mounting hardware. We have a countersunk anodized washer and a countersunk screw. That goes from the outside, and from the inside we have a washer and then a nylock nut. Make sure that you get the threaded part on first. Nylock locking element to the inside, pointed to the inside of the box. I'm just going to loosely get it on so that it's held on but still very loose bracket locating force. Repeat the steps on the other side. Now I want to disclose why I chose this flow versus having the airbox pre-assembled completely. First, it is an ABS specific airbox, so I have plenty of reach here to my hardware. I can assemble it at this place. Second, I do want to show that it is possible to extract only the front of the airbox for filter service, and then you don't have to rip everything apart. I do want to mention that on the previous installation on the Ninja 400, where we had no ABS here, we did a different flow where we had the airbox built first and then we superimposed it onto the bike. That just cuts out some of my light and I'm not able to see the hoses, so I chose to break it down like this for this installation. I left this loose because I'll need to get it in place here and kind of flex it so that I can get these tabs into here, but from within. So that'll be a delicate movement. I will need to make sure that I don't strain anything. First, these ear tabs have to go over their locations on both sides. That may require a little bit of a stretch. Now I'm going to bring this in alignment on the bottom. I'm going to have to push the front of the airbox forward a little bit until I feel my tabs drop in. And I just dropped the filter into the airbox, so I'm gonna have to back up a step and be less clumsy on my next attempt. Bottom's done. I just need to get the top on. And there it is. Align my mounting hardware. I'm gonna feel to make sure that the tabs actually are protruding from their windows, and they are. So we do have positive lock there. I'm gonna grab the mounting hardware for the nose to tail of the airbox and get that assembled now. Now we'll get our mounting hardware aligned here with the frame. Grab the OEM screws that came out of that location when we took away the bracket. Using a 12mm socket, I will get those screws down to almost bottom out. Leave just a little bit of adjustability. So this is still able to move a little bit. I'm going to tighten it after I tighten down these fastener pairs. So we have a 10mm hex on the inside, that nut. I'll need to hold it with a 10mm either box or open-ended wrench. And here on the outside I'm going to use an L wrench for simplicity. It's a 4mm. So here, tightening this fastener pair, we need to ensure that there's enough preload in that rubber grommet to activate the suspension quality of fastener through a grommet type of connection, and then do not tighten beyond that. All right, that's looking good. We're looking good here. Now it's just a matter of having the airbox where it lays on the throttle bodies determine where that mounting hardware wants to be tightened down, and then we just tighten that down. We are turning a pretty big M8 screw against a flat piece of plastic. Let's not strain the plastic, just tight enough so that the plastic is preloading the threads against vibration loosening. And now we are ready for reassembly of the vehicle in the reverse order of disassembly. We will connect this in here, grab our tank, get the tank in place. I'm gonna get these in first. All right, now I'm gonna get my electrical connection in for the sender. Get my fuel line on. All right guys, that's pretty much it. And that's the whole job. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. I want to thank you for watching. If you like the parts that I demonstrated in this video, you'll find them at tstindustries.com. We have those parts ready to go for you. Also other parts that you may want for your bike or other bikes in your stable. Like I said, thanks for watching, ride safe, see you later.